Idris, the first time I saw your work was actually in 2003. I don't even remember where, but it stopped me. The surfaces you were creating were so rich and so vibrant that they were just wonderful to behold, and the scale of the work was so impressive. And I thought, this is somebody I need to watch and just see what happens.
You know, this is going to be the first American Museum show for me, 20 years of work. And I think what's really important is that you're really looking at the early photography right through to the current day, which is going through into the sort of more colour work in the last 5 years, I would say. The first works that you see when you enter the exhibition is a piece I made for my degree show. And when the show opens in April, it will be exactly 20 years to the day that I actually made those works.
One of the things that really connects all of the work in the exhibition is this relationship that you have to repetition. And so I thought it would be interesting to talk about the title of the show, which you came up with, and I'm so grateful, and I think has a lot of personal and professional meanings for you.
It's something that's always been with me since I was a young child. So my father was a Muslim, and I was raised in an Islamic household. And I think it's somehow to do with that. I mean, you know, Islam is a very repetitive religion. Pray 5 times a day. You walk around the Kaaba 7 times when you go to do Hajj. I suppose then through my artistic practice, I have always repeated things, layer on top of layer on top of layer, and I suppose that repetition and that sort of reoccurrence somehow influences everything that I make today.
I also think one of the things that the act of repetition affords you is actually a focus on difference. Because each time as you're repeating, whether it's placing the stamps on top of the paper or the canvas, or layering the sheet music one on top of the other, what your eye's drawn to as a viewer is seeing those minute differences where those layers and that repetition come apart. And that's been true since the photographs all the way to the new body of work that you're creating.
I think that's true, and you know, the title "Repeat After Me" really almost triggers that intrigue. And then for the new body of work, for the first time I'm showing it at the Milwaukee Art Museum, I've started to look back at old master paintings. This is very much looking at a sort of deconstruction of a painting, looking at the colours especially of each painting, but also the amount of colour used within them. That sort of gave me the structure behind the composition. There's one particular one which is part of your collection.
It's the St. Francis of Assisi in his tomb by Zurbaran.
And that painting, when I visited the museum, really jumped out. It's such a moving painting. And I think that there's something from that that's almost devotion. For me, the verticality of that painting was really interesting. Maybe it's not an exact representation, I'm not trying to do that. It's the interpretation of it, bit by bit, if you like, and the energy that it brings.
I'm so excited to show this work at the museum because the Zurbaran is such an iconic piece of our collection. And so one of the things that your work does is it reminds us of the richness of the color that it contains, actually. What advice would you give the visitors to the exhibition? What clues would you give them as they think about your work?
I think that what's really nice about it is that I feel that they will question what they're looking at throughout the entire show. There's a lot of facets to the work. They get a sense of a journey. A journey is, for me as an artist, gaining confidence through starting out as a photographer, but then gaining confidence to make sculpture, to make paintings. You know, I think the journey of an artist is to really understand their own practice, and I'm definitely not there yet.
I will say, for me, it's been such a joy to work with you and to curate this exhibition, which as a director I don't get to do very often these days. And every step that you've taken since 2002, 2003 has been about refining that vocabulary and adding something to it. And so my hope for the visitors to the museum when they go through the exhibition is that they slow down and think about that vocabulary and what you've set out, which is very conceptual, very methodical, but also incredibly intimate and beautiful. There's so much emotion in the work if you can slow down to start looking at the surfaces and thinking about what you're adding each step of the way. And every room to me feels like a chapter in the story of that great journey and that great experiment that you have started and continue. I can't wait to see what happens next.